Hi, welcome to this little bite-sized training session in relation to signs of anxiety and trauma.
I feel like my teachers will have noticed that at somewhere in them, because I started off really well, I was okay, I was doing all my things, my work, and then somewhere in the middle I lost that motivation and I became really anxious and very worried about how this was going to affect my situation, my university application, and just my learning in general. And there's the expectation to be doing extracurricular stuff, but all of the extracurricular stuff's online, so it's not like if we were in a normal situation, it's not like we'd be doing work experience outside of school, where we'd be like getting some actual field work done. Everything is online. Like, I feel like I spend my day staring at a screen. I feel like that's all I do, and I think that also makes me feel anxious, and also like I've got nowhere else to go because everything I need to do is in one place, one like massive place, the internet, and I don't see how I can move forward and keep checking these things off my list because the list just gets longer and longer.
I feel like I can't switch off either. Like I don't have any time, like downtime. Like I'm
Yeah,
doing work or being sent an email, or I've got all of this stuff, and the teachers, I think they think that they're setting us the same amount of work, but we're getting so much extra work and it's
and
not making sense.
I also think my parents as well, they'll have probably noticed that, like, they always say, oh, have some downtime, relax a bit, but it's
It's hard.
it's it's difficult to relax when you've got so much in your head, so
Yeah.
much that you have to do, and then
Hard to switch off when there's so many like external factors that are pushing against you, and you can't. If you just relax, then you just think about them constantly, and
like
it
I
makes
should be doing that.
me snap at people because I just want to be like alone. Like I just want to be by myself and not think about everything.
Yeah, it makes you really intolerant to.
Yeah. I sometimes just keep to myself, and I don't want to talk to people because I'm just so stressed and overwhelmed, and I just know I need to sit down and do my work, but then I can't because I want to speak to my friends, but then it gets to the point where I'm like, well, I just can't deal with any of it.
So the actual aim of this session is what to look out for in children and young people who might be anxious or experiencing some sort of trauma when they're in your setting or your school. And also the aim is to promote some confidence to use some of the resources available to support these children and young people. So I think first thing to point out is that you actually know your children and young people the best, really. I appreciate that some of you, it might be the first time that you're meeting them if we're thinking about the transition, but in general, you will have an idea of how these children and young people usually behave. And so we need to understand that we all experience things differently. And when it comes to experiencing any sort of mental health issues, then there is no one size fits all, and they are all going to be different and feeling and emotionally feeling different. It's good that you know your boundaries. You know, we're not here to diagnose. I need to really stress that. But if your concerns persist, then again, I think sometimes we just have a gut instinct that something is persisting and things are not changing. And so follow your internal protocols, seek advice, and worst case scenario, think about safeguarding, because some children may have gone through quite a lot of trauma in this period of lockdown and being away from school and be quite vulnerable. So again, you will have a good idea of who these children and young people are. So this is not an exhaustive list, I need to point out. There are lots and lots of ways that a young person may display the fact that they are struggling and feeling quite anxious, or may have experienced some trauma. So this is just a sort of a brief list really of some of the things. You know, they might be extremely quiet and extremely well behaved. I mean, that is not really the norm for most children and young people. You know, we all have days when we're not behaving our best. So just being aware of those sorts of things. They might be fearful of asking questions and actually getting involved. And if that is not their usual behaviour, then again, be aware of that. They might actually be asking lots and lots of questions, seeking reassurance, trying to take up lots and lots of your time. And again, if this is not their usual behaviour, then be alert to the fact that they might actually be showing some signs of anxiety. Might be complaining of physical aches and pains, constant stomach aches, headaches, things like that. I'm sure, any of us who've had children can think about the times when there's been something that they haven't wanted to do. Remember, anxiety, usually we want to avoid things. So, the sort of, I've got stomach ache in the morning, I can't go to school, or I've got a headache, those sorts of things. Again, you might see some of that happening. You might notice that actually they're spending a lot of time alone, and they're not actually with their friends. And of course, because of the sort of guidelines around social distancing and things like that, these things might be a little bit more difficult to pick up on. So just be really alert to what's going on for young people and how they're actually navigating some of these rules and regulations that have been put around them. They might be avoiding doing the work, so procrastination is another sign of avoidance, really. I'm going to put it off, or I'll do it tomorrow, or I haven't finished it. Or it might be the other way. They might actually be showing signs of perfectionism, which is particularly bad, because if that perfectionism, if that's your sort of gold standard where everything has got to be, then you're always kind of setting yourself up to be disappointed. You're always setting yourself up to be anxious about every situation. So again, perfectionism is something where there are lots of support and lots of ways that we can work with children and young people. Compulsive behaviour, you might notice that again some of that is creeping in, or just excessive fear and worry about the situation that's going on at the moment, and about things that have happened, in the past as well, because again, some of these young people may have actually had some bereavement, some loss, or been subject to some sort of trauma during this period of lockdown when they've been away from school or your setting. As I've said, this is not an exhaustive list. Everyone is going to be unique. Everybody is going to experience this in a different way. But it's just being alert to these things, because that can really help. And then it helps you to be proactive and maybe use some of the resources that are available to you to start unpicking some of these things for young people. So, as I've said, some may have experienced some bereavement and loss. They might be really, really worried and still anxious about the whole situation. Am I likely to lose other members of my family? What's this going to mean to me? So, you don't need to be an expert to support them. You just need to be able to do some good active listening, really. And we've got another little bite-sized thing that we're going to really look at how to have that conversation and some things to think about. But in the meantime, I would have a look at the Rotherham Educational Psychology Services have put together some 20-minute videos, and one of them on bereavement and loss I feel is particularly good, and it gives some good sort of resources as well that you can use. And within that, there's a really good little video clip that you'll find on YouTube anyway, called The Struggle Switch by Dr. Russ Harris. And it really sort of puts some things into perspective. And also the Child Bereavement UK have specifically produced a video for the COVID-19 situation, which they're called Supporting Children Through Difficult Times. And that's suitable for both professionals and parents and carers. So again, good ways to generate some discussion about how a child or young person is feeling about that sort of bereavement and loss, and help them to go through that sort of grieving process, which has been more challenging really in the times that we've been faced with. So some of the sort of things to normalise the feelings, looking into some of the lesson plans. So again, something like a feelings graffiti wall, where you can look at the sort of negative and positive aspects of how a young person might be feeling. The How Are You Feeling website, the sort of professionals area. There are lots of things that the Anna Freud Family Centre have put on there, which will really help children and young people manage anxiety, for example. And then the Hull City Psychological Services have put together Coming to Terms with School Changes Linked to COVID, and making sense of what's happening really. So actually using some visual ways, some vision boards and things like that to actually encourage that hope and optimism for the future, which is really important that we do that at this moment in time. It'd be really easy to kind of go down the sort of gloomy, sort of gloom and doom really. We need to be really positive and hopeful that things are going to change and things are going to improve. Some of the sort of tips and techniques as well. Again, there are some really good videos on the Hull City Psychological Services website, some age appropriate videos to generate some of that discussion. There's also some of the breathing and relaxation exercises, again, maybe just starting lessons, starting the day, thinking about incorporating some breathing and relaxation into your sort of daily routines would be good. Again, the lesson plans, lots of really good things. For the older age group, there's a how are you feeling quiz, which I think is particularly helpful because, again, it can be done anonymously. So, you know, young people might feel more comfortable to do that at that particular age, that sort of more sort of older or teenage age. And then the vision boards that I've already mentioned. But also in all of this, you need to remember your own self-care as well. Because, you know, there's that old adage that you can't pour from an empty glass. I think a good analogy is when you get on a plane and they tell you about putting on your oxygen mask, they always tell you to put your own oxygen mask on first before helping anybody else to do so. And that's for a reason. You know, you've got to be in the best place you can be to support other people. So don't forget yourselves as well. And if there's anything that you're struggling with in any way, then there are lots of people that you can reach out to. And it is okay and it is quite natural. We're going through really different, challenging times. So there are some people that you can reach out to, and I've just given an idea of some of those. The Hull and East Yorkshire Mind have now got a 24/7 helpline with a free phone number that you can ring. So you can speak to a member of staff, you can get support, you can get advice and guidance, they can send you, you know, some sort of useful information. Hull City Psychological Services, I've got a telephone line that you can actually ring and again get some specific advice about the resources that they've produced or any other sort of advice that's, you know, educationally based. And then, of course, we've got the actual mental health services, so the low-level mental health services that can offer you support. So Let's Talk in Hull is, again, a way of actually being able to access some service for yourself, and also the emotional wellbeing service in the East Riding. So, you know, please don't forget to look after yourself, because if you don't look after yourself, then it's going to be more difficult to actually notice what's going on with children and young people and actually offer them support that they might need as well. So we all need to be sort of doing the same thing, really. Thank you for listening, and I hope you found it useful.